What if I told you that one of the world's biggest drug trafficking networks was not run by a cartel boss hiding in a jungle, but by sitting president inside a palace? This is not a movie, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is the story of Nicolás Maduro, the president of Venezuela, a man accused by the United States government of running a narco state, of turning cocaine into a weapon, and of protecting one of the most powerful drug networks in modern history. For more than 20 years, American investigators claim cocaine did not pass through Venezuela by accident. It passed because the state allowed it, because the military protected it, because the president benefited from it. This is the story of power, drugs, family, betrayal, and how an entire country became a corridor for cocaine. Before the indictments, before the bounties, before the words narco-terrorism were attached to his name, Nicolás Maduro was a bus driver. Born in Caracas in 1962, Maduro came from a working-class background. He was not a general, not a billionaire, not an elite politician groomed for global power. He was a union activist, deeply involved in left-wing politics, inspired by Cuban socialism and revolutionary ideology. This matters because Maduro did not rise alone. He rose under Hugo Chávez. Chávez didn't just change Venezuela's politics, he rebuilt the state around loyalty. The military, intelligence services, courts, and oil revenues were all pulled closer to the presidency. Loyalty was rewarded, dissent was punished. Maduro learned inside the system. When Chávez fell ill and later died in 2013, Maduro inherited the presidency, control over the military, control over ports and airports, control over intelligence agencies, control over Venezuela's borders. And according to US prosecution, that control changed everything. Geography decides crime. Venezuela sits next to Colombia, the world's largest cocaine producer for decades. It has long poorly monitored coastlines, remote jungle airstrips, weak institutional oversight, massive corruption vulnerabilities. By the early 2000s, US anti-drug agencies were already warning that Venezuela had become a key transit route for cocaine moving forward to the Caribbean, Central America, the United States, and Europe. But here's the disturbing part. Traffickers weren't just passing through Venezuela, they were protected. American and Colombian intelligence reports repeatedly flagged drug flights leaving Venezuela airspace without interception, maritime shipments leaving Venezuelan ports untouched, military control zones acting as safe corridors. This wasn't cartel power. This was state-level immunity. One of the strongest red flags came quietly. In 2005, Venezuela cut cooperation with the US Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA). No joint operations, no intelligence sharing, no oversight. From that moment, US officials claimed that cocaine flows increased sharply. According to later US court filings, hundreds of tons of cocaine were estimated to transit Venezuela annually. Drug flights increased, seizures mysteriously dropped. To investigators, it looked like someone had turned off the alarms. And when Maduro took full control after Chávez, that silence only deepened. Long before Maduro was charged, the phrase "cartel de los soles" began circulating. The name came from the sun insignias worn by Venezuelan generals. Journalists and investigators used it to describe a pattern. Senior military officers accused of protecting drug shipments, bribes paid for safe passage, intelligence used to avoid detection. At this stage, there were no public indictments against Maduro, but there was a pattern, and patterns attract prosecutors. By the late 2010, US investigators believed they had crossed a line. This was no longer corruption, negligence, or rogue officers. According to US authorities, this was now a criminal conspiracy operating at the highest level of government. Witnesses began cooperating, financial trials were mapped, communications were intercepted, and everything, according to prosecutors, led upward toward the presidency. By the time Nicolás Maduro stood before the world as Venezuela's uncontested leader, the United States had already begun preparing something unprecedented. A criminal case against a sitting head of state. But the real explosion hadn't happened yet, because in March 2020, the silence ended and the indictment changed everything. For years, these were only whispers, rumors, hidden behind power and politics. But in 2020, the United States stopped whispering. It put everything on paper and named the president himself.